So we're meeting up today online and we're going to talk about something that's close to me that I haven't really shared before. I'm going to share a little bit about my journey going from employee to entrepreneur and business owner. And I'll also share along the way some of the struggles that I've experienced. And I'm really focusing on the startup phase. I'm focusing on year one because most businesses that start up actually don't even make it past year one. And we really critically need businesses to succeed. And if my story can help you, if you can learn from the struggles and how I've overcome them, then by all means, let's make sure that that is exactly what is happening. And if you've got questions as we go along, please feel free to pop them into the chat box. I don't have slides for you today. I'm just going to share, and I've made some notes and I'll go through my notes. I'm going to share and just take you through a journey on year one specifically, which was the toughest year in my business journey, and you'll see that for me it picked up from there. And hopefully if you're jumping into the same boat or you're already in the same boat, that for you it will pick up from whatever level you're sitting at as well. So let's dive right in. And I'm going to take you all the way back to 2014, which is when my transition shifted from that of employee to employer. I started off my journey. Well, actually, let me go even further beyond 2014. So you've got a bit of context, so you can see just maybe how entrenched this whole employee vibe was in me, and that also just added to the challenge and the challenges of the transition that I experienced thereafter. I finished university and I studied to be a chartered accountant, completed my studies and was offered and accepted a training contract with KPMG. That was the firm of my choice, and I was really just thrilled to be offered a training contract with them. And that was way back in 1998. So yes, it's a long time ago. And I started my training contract with KPMG, and I never left KPMG until the day I decided to step out into my own business. And that was 16 years later, when I decided to take the plunge and to get out and get things done for myself in my own little, and to create my own little world and my own little environment out there. And in those 16 years while in corporate, I jumped through so many hoops. I mean, I really pushed myself hard. And I said, if I'm going to stay here and if I'm going to get to where if I'm going to actually stay in the firm and I'm going to pursue a career within the firm, then there is no choice other than setting my sights on becoming a director. And I did. I became a director in the firm, and I was a director for 6 years before I left the firm to get started on my own. And in that entire time, I really had my head down and I was focused. And those of you that are in a corporate space and have been on the career chase, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your entire world almost just blanks out outside of this career zone that you're chasing. And even though everything's there and you're starting up the family, and I had 2 children, got married, had 2 children while I was employed at KPMG, and the family was growing on the side, and other activities were happening as well. But my core focus was that of career. And I absolutely loved my journey, and I loved all of the lessons learned, and I loved the progress and the transitions that I made. But I found myself waking up one day, and if some of you have reached the 40s, you'll know what I'm talking about, or you're closing in on them, is as I started to approach this elusive age of 40, something started to churn on the inside, and I just started to feel really anxious within the space that I was in. And I felt that I really needed to expand my contribution, that I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't giving enough, I wasn't serving enough, I wasn't fulfilling what I was meant to be fulfilling. Not that I even had any sort of clarity in terms of what that meant or where I thought I should be or what I thought I should be doing. But I made the decision and handed in my resignation and then set off on my journey to become an entrepreneur. And when I left KPMG, even though I was a chartered accountant, I was a director in a Big Four audit firm, I had all of these labels, all of the status, all of the prestige. The one thing that was really very true was I walked out and I was completely naive, completely ignorant, completely at a loss in terms of what it would mean to become a business owner, in terms of stepping out of the employee zone, where at every month in there was a beep on your cell phone and money deposited into your bank account, and you were in this comfort zone. Even though it was a high performing zone, it was still a comfort zone where you knew what to expect, where you knew your boundaries, you knew how to overcome those boundaries, you knew exactly how to function within that zone. And I had left corporate, and now suddenly I was thrown into a world that I completely had no clue how to navigate or how to function in. Even though I had prepared myself for months before leaving, I woke up every morning at 4 a.m. and started writing. I made lists and notes and created strategies, and I thought I had created great clarity around what it is I wanted to be doing once I stepped out of corporate. However, once I stepped out of corporate, I realized that what I thought was clarity actually was just this muddled pool of what if this, what if that, and maybe this and maybe that. And it was not the sort of clarity that was going to enable a business to grow and develop and really become a sustainable income generating venture for myself. And so began year one. In March 2014, I walked out of corporate. And I decided to take April 2014 off to spend with the children who would be on school holidays and spend some time with my husband. Because while in corporate, my diary was really so booked up, and it was work came first. I mean, my family holds high priority for me, high value for me, but work always came first. And I decided to give myself a break. And someone had told me that, Usha, you'll be really happy one day when you are able to wake up in the morning when you're done sleeping. And that phrase just latched on and got stuck in my brain, and it became the thing I needed to do in April, because I just felt that for years and years and years, I was not able to have the freedom to just switch off and go to sleep and wake when I was done sleeping. And I had given myself this gift. I said, April, you're a gift. And I'm just going to let loose, and nothing's going to trouble me. And there's going to be no worries. I'm going to wake when I'm done sleeping, and I'm going to spend time with my children and my husband. And we're just going to really just dive in and enjoy April. And I'd done that. I mean, April went by, and so that was problem number one, actually. And I hadn't even realized that I'd created myself problem number one, where I thought that I could switch off and go into this unproductive mode, and that it would actually be easy to switch gears and get back into productive mode again. And if ever you're in a space where you're thinking, I just need to switch off, I need to take a whole month off, I need to create this gap in my life, just know that once you do that, it's really difficult to start running again. I mean, I was running at full pace, and then I just stopped and I took this big break. And now you need to start jogging and running and navigating a new space again. And it becomes really, really challenging. And so in May, I needed to get the ball rolling and start moving again. And in May, challenge number 2 came along, and my dad got really ill and had challenges with his health and needed to go in for some surgery. And then my mom-in-law got really ill as well, and she went in for surgery, but her illness was really severe, and she didn't recover, and we lost her in June 2014. And now I'd left corporate, and I left with this big notion of starting my business and getting running. And in my first year, I'm going to do all of these great things. And now suddenly I'm months in, and I've done absolutely nothing. And all I faced was challenge number 1, challenge number 2, challenge number 3. And then you think, okay, well, now it's time to get going again. And then my dad got really ill again and needed to go for bypass surgery. And then my mom got really ill, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. So she was in and out of doctors and ended up going for surgery herself. That entire first 12 months, just completely vanished and was one challenge after the other, and none of them could have been predicted or planned for in advance. And for me, it was really something that I needed to stop and reflect on after the year was over. But there were a lot of activities I needed to have gotten done within that year to ensure that at the end of that 12 months, I wouldn't be a completely broken, shattered person. Now, on the work front, I mean, it didn't, in all honesty, it didn't stagnate to a point of absolutely nothing. I did do a couple of proposals, and I'd walked out, and I'm really good at HR strategy consulting with SMMEs. And I thought, okay, this is one of my service lines. And I went out and I met with a couple of companies, did my proposals, and here I am with big brand mentality. I mean, I was raised in a corporate that I'd spent my entire working life in. And I went out to do proposals to SMMEs because that's the niche that I was going to serve. And I did the proposals with this corporate hat on. And the proposals looked professional and they were great and they sounded professional, but they were not the products that an SMME would buy. And so the first many proposals that I'd done for the consulting work that I would be offering, that I knew I could add incredible value in, came back with big fat no's. And so I started to now get some rejection that was getting collected under my belt as well. So we're now adding to the pain in year one, and we got some rejection going. And then I decided, so those of you who are in my network, you know that I do a lot of training now, training face-to-face, in classroom training, and I do online training. So it's really a space that I'm completely passionate about, and I spend a lot of time in. But in year one, I decided to also do a bit of training because I knew that that was something I needed to build into my business model, because it's really a space I could make a huge difference in. And I hosted my first training event. It was in partnership with another trainer. And when we decided on the topic, we together came up with a topic that was fit for market. So a topic that really we felt the market needed. However, it was a topic that I wasn't completely aligned with. And I realized in hindsight, that was the biggest mistake that I could ever have made, is buying into something that I wasn't truly aligned with. And I'd invested time and energy and resources to market and promote this event. And on the day, we had people arriving and they all got seated, and we had to pay for venue and catering. And those of you who spend money to put events together know everything that goes into putting an event together. So it really took a lot out to get this event together. And I spent all night prepping my notes. And there were so many signs along the way that I was making a mistake here, but I didn't know how to see those signs. And I went ahead and made the mistake and ran the event. And at the event, I mean, if you ask me and you say, Usha, how did that event go? I mean, your first event that you hosted, how did that event go? And I, standing at the front of the room presenting, was completely, how can I even explain it? I was just completely disconnected with the material that I was trying to present, disconnected from the message that I was trying to share, and very disconnected from the people in the room. And it came across, and they felt it, and I felt it, and I'll tell you how for sure that that's exactly what they'd experienced in the room, is that one guy, I mean, it wasn't like I had hundreds of people in the room, it was a small audience. And one guy sitting in the front row, I mean, right under my nose, fell off to sleep. I mean, seriously, how much worse can it get? I'm having a really tough year here, guy. Can you please at least stay awake during the first event that I am now hosting? And so we go and we say, well, can you pile it on? What else happened in that first year that really should have maybe crippled you and stopped you and said, Usha, you were thriving in the workspace, and maybe you need to just go back into the workspace. Well, the other thing that came at the end of this entire year is that from an earnings perspective, I grossed. I mean, I took home, I billed a total of less than 10% of what I had earned the year before while in corporate. Now, I mean, at this point, come 12 months later, nothing that I had imagined had come true. I mean, everything that in my wildest dreams would have been the worst thing that could have happened in those first 12 months. And many businesses at the end of that first 12 months have experienced equivalent hardships, maybe in different spaces, but definitely many knocks, knock after knock after knock after knock. And the problem is that majority of those business owners are walking away before trying to figure out, well, how do I actually just wake up and start to run again? How do I get past this? How do I still make my dream come true? Because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, when we're making our dreams come true, we're not only creating impact for ourselves. I mean, through our businesses, through our dreams, through what we're creating, we're able to impact just circles and circles and circles of people out there. And it's an absolute imperative that if you're wanting to start a business, or you're already in your business and you're just nudging along in that first year, and you're feeling the pain, and it's quite a struggle, and you're trying to push through, well, you really do need to reconnect back with the dream, with the reason you went and stepped out in the first place, and find it within yourself to push past, because it does get better thereafter. But there were distinct strategies that I utilized in that first year to get me through. So the pain was real. I mean, I experienced I was bashed time and time and time again. But at the end of the first year, I mean, if you had asked somebody else who might have been in exactly the same shoes as me, they might have come through those 12 months and felt completely broken. They might have just felt completely shattered. But at the end of those first 12 months, I actually was still completely positive. Still felt like my glass was half full. In fact, when I look at my glass, even if it's half full, I see it as full. Still completely positive. And the reason I was in that sort of frame of mind is that I'd gone through a journey in that first year, running parallel to all of these challenges that I was experiencing, running parallel through all of the hurdles that I was going through and climbing over. There was a strategy that I had applied on the side, and not one that I had intentionally applied. I mean, if I had, I'd be tapping myself on the back even more, but nothing that I had intentionally applied. In fact, it was something that I had stumbled across, thankfully, very early in that first 12 months, and it excited me, and I just dove straight in, and it's what actually pulled me through. And the thing that had really made all of the difference was in April, while it was my gap month, my sleep till you're awake when you're done sleeping month, I had attended a business seminar. And at that seminar, there were trainers and presenters that were really phenomenal in their spaces, and they were functioning in spaces that I knew that I wanted to be functioning in as well. And I signed up for some of the courses that they were offering. In fact, I worked with probably 5 or 6 individual really high profile mentors in that first year. And if we're talking challenges, and I told you I'd earned less than 10% of what I'd earned the year before, I earned less than 10%. And then I went and spent a good couple of 100K on training in that first 12 months. Now, if you were sitting at home with me, you would have been privy to a couple of conversations from a financial perspective. Spouses don't like it when spouses spend significantly more than they're able to bring in revenue. And that's exactly what I'd done in that first year. I invested just heaps of cash on learning and development. I spent and invested on one-on-one coaching with some of the most incredible mentors. I live in Pietermaritzburg. I flew to Johannesburg on a weekly basis to attend Robin Banks. Some of you might know him. His mind power workshops that he runs on a weekly basis, I think it was for a month. I flew once a week to Johannesburg to attend his seminars. So I'd fly, attend it, and his seminars used to end like 11 at night. And then I'd fly back first thing the next morning. So I'm here to help the kids get ready for school and to sort of all of those things. So that first year, while I was just going through one challenge after the other, the one thing that I invested in was really just building a solid, bulletproof mindset. Nothing that you could have thrown at me would have broken me. Absolutely nothing, because I just had this most solid, bulletproof mindset. I mean, think about you right now. Think about people that are around you right now, your friends, your family, your colleagues at work, and think about some of the hardships that they're going through. And by no means am I comparing the hardships that I went through in business in that first year to the hardships that people are experiencing now, because they're definitely at different levels. However, if we take a hardship and we say, well, what is the thing that we need? The one thing that can get us through this hardship, the number one thing that can get you through that hardship is your mindset. And that's exactly what I'd invested in. And like I'm saying, I stumbled across that in my first year. And thankfully so, because had I not stumbled across that, and had I not bought into it, and had I not invested, I mean, heaps of time, heaps of resources in just making it happen, that end of that 12 months would have been the end of my entrepreneurship experience. I would have been back in the workplace, because I just would not have handled it. The failures would have become just far too much for me to manage. But at the end of the first year, all I did was said, it's year 2, let's get going. I did not for a second think I needed to stop. I needed to change gears, change lanes. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. And at that time, I had the level of clarity that I didn't have when I first set off on the journey. So the first thing was the bulletproof mindset. And that came from what I was feeding my mind on a daily basis. I never stopped. Every single day I fed my mind. And it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself. So if you're taking notes and you're saying, what is the best thing I can do for myself right now? The number one thing you can do is to feed your mind. Only positive, only aligned to where you're going, only aligned to your goals, only aligned to how do I solve this problem, how do I move forward, how do I pick things up, how can I increase the pace here, how can I learn this new skill. That is all you invest in, is growing your mindset, building up that bulletproof mindset. That is the number one thing that's going to help you to get through any challenge and any hurdle that comes your way, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in your career. It actually is irrelevant. Whatever space it's in, you'll have the power and the ability to get through it. It all starts in our minds, and that's where we get to move thereafter. So it starts in our minds, and then what we do with it after that comes from what else we fed ourselves. So the other thing that I did in that first year was I got to know myself really intimately. And this was critically important, because what I had found myself doing was I would come up with ideas in terms of what I wanted to do in the business. So if you've got a business, you know that you need products. And once you've got products, then you've got to go out market and sell those products, and then you must deliver the products. And I've got an incredibly creative mind. And my creative mind just runs at 1,000 miles per hour. And every single day, I come up with new ideas, and that's just who I am. I'll see a problem around me. I'll see something that looks interesting, and I'll come up with a new idea. And in that first year business, that is exactly what happened. I came up with new ideas constantly, and I had books, and I'd write down these ideas, and here's the next idea, here's the next idea, and then I'd take that idea and I'd invest all of my creative energy into building it up. So I'd take the idea, build it up, turn it into something that looks, oh my God, this is so fabulous. It's going to create so much of change, and then do nothing else with it. And when I went through this journey of getting to know myself, I started to understand that the energy that I had, I mean, just all of us have different energies in different doses, but one of the energies that I have in an abundant supply is a creative energy. And what I love doing, I mean, the space that just keeps me so happy is creating new things. And in that first year, while everything else was going on, I constantly created new things. I would dive right in and I would create it. But what I'd failed to do was actually take it, market it, sell it, deliver it. So I would create, and then forget to market, sell, and deliver. And that came back to just understanding myself, that this is my happy space. This is what energizes me. The other stuff doesn't. And so I get to a certain point and then I move on to the next bright, shiny idea, and I'm running in a different direction. And that's something I needed to rein in as well. And it's something that I started to rein in year 2. So I really needed to get to know myself. So the first was that creative energy. The second was perfection paralysis. So coupled with this creative energy, I'd constantly be coming up with new ideas and constantly building out those ideas. And then I'd want it to look 100% perfect before I did anything else with it. And because it never looked 100% perfect, it would never go to the next phase. It would never go into marketing and selling it and delivering it. So I would stop. And then the next bright, shiny idea would take my interest, and I'd be running in that direction. So I needed to also get a grip on that. Perfection paralysis as a business owner can be completely crippling. So we've got to have qualities. We've got to have high standards. And I mean, I never, ever crimp on my high standards. However, I had to realize that perfectionism and high standards are two different things. Quality and perfectionism are two different things. And I needed to associate myself more with quality and high standards and move away from this whole notion of perfectionism. And that is another strategy that I adopted to help me to start shifting gears in year 2. So to lift the paralysis that came from perfection. But that came down to knowing myself. So we went through developing my bulletproof mindset. And I told you that came from what I fed myself, who I engaged with, the mentors that I worked with, the coaches that I worked with. Then it was knowing myself incredibly well and knowing what excited me and moved me forward, and knowing what stopped me from moving forward and what held me back. And the way that I did that was through a profiling tool called Contribution Compass. Now, there are tons of profiling tools out there. If you don't understand yourself, if you don't know why it is you like certain things, why you just naturally steer away from other things, then go and get yourself profiled. Understand yourself from a strengths perspective, from an energy perspective, from a just the things that you enjoy perspective, what are you aligned to perspective, and then make sure that that is what you're utilizing in order to map your path forward. And that's what I did. I invested in getting to know myself and knowing myself incredibly well. And other aspects that I needed to know about myself was that I'm a chartered accountant. I don't like to spend money. And even though I spent money on developing my mindset, I would not spend money as freely when it came to other aspects of the business, like building a website and the graphics and design and all of the elements that actually end up costing a small fortune. And when you're a small business owner or you're just starting up, if you're throwing your money at all of these different little elements that without thinking twice, you'll eventually find that you've spent heaps of cash and then you haven't really got anything to take yourself forward. I mean, if I think of that first year when I constantly shifted gears, changed, really tried to find myself, understand what it is I wanted to do, understand where I was going, understand the products that I wanted to deliver and the services that I wanted to deliver. If I had invested each time in graphics designers, putting together brochures and packs and marketing assets and graphics and design, it would have cost me an absolute arm and a length, because at the end of 12 months, I mean, that's how long it took me to actually come to grips with what it is I wanted to do and have the real sort of clarity to get it done. I would have been flat broke and I probably would have had to go back into employment anyway. So as a business owner, just know yourself really well and know where you can invest and know how to manage your money, because money management is absolutely critical to your survival. So when it came to website design, graphics, I went out and I learned all of the apps that were available, all of the marketing hacks, all of the tools. So that's another area that I invested huge amounts of time so that I could get it done by myself. So maybe not at the quality that you'd expect from top-notch graphic designers, but definitely at a good enough quality. So we had to throw away perfection, so no longer perfection paralysis. And we had to say that is the quality high enough, are the standards high enough that you'd still be able to serve your market at the right level with? And yes, it was. And so I put together a list of marketing hacks that helped me to make sure that I got the mundane day-to-day tasks done as cheaply as I possibly could. And as a new business owner, trust me, spending less money on the things that you need to pay for on a regular basis actually serves your business in the long run. Unless you've got heaps of cash to invest up front anyway, but that's what worked for me. Another area that really was important in knowing myself was understanding my values. Now, I always knew that I valued my career. That was just, something that I valued from the day one, and it never ever changed. And absolutely up to now, up to today, it's something that I completely value. The other area of my highest value was that of family, and that as well has never changed. It's been consistent throughout my life. That family was a high value for me. And if we go back and look at that year one and all of the challenges and hurdles that I had to cross over, a lot of those challenges came from the area of family. And because it was aligned to my highest value, it actually didn't detract from me. Going and sitting in hospitals or spending time supporting parents or supporting the family members thereafter actually is totally aligned with my value system. And having the freedom and flexibility to be able to do that kept me calm and kept me happy. And in fact, if I flipped it around and I said, had all of those events occurred a year earlier while I was still employed, I think that would have broken me, because I would have needed to be at the office and invest in my career at a certain level, and I never would have been able to give back to my family at the level that I was able to in that year one. And that's another reason that in year one, I could go back and say, you know what, all of this is aligned to family. The fact that I could spare up that time and invest it in family is a good thing. And that really did help keeping me in a positive mindset and helping me to get through so that I didn't break at the end of year one, and I continued thereafter. So we spoke about a bulletproof mindset, and then we said the next foundation is knowing yourself really well. That's your strengths, what it is you like, you dislike, what holds you back, what moves you forward, and then understanding your values as well. The next foundational level is growing yourself. And growing yourself is something you should be doing on a daily basis. If you're looking at your business and you're saying, these are the areas that I need to grow in my business, well, you need to grow yourself in order to be able to develop those areas of the business. And growing yourself in terms of learning and development, like we've always already spoken about, in terms of your mindset, in terms of growing yourself so you're stretching out of your comfort zone, that you're getting out of your box, that you're not conforming and doing things like you've always done things. I mean, think about it in the context of COVID-19 that we've not just gone through, that we're living through right now. And when we went into lockdown, those of us that invest in growing ourselves, those of us that have invested in the bulletproof mindset, are the individuals who managed to be agile in the lockdown period, are the entrepreneurs who managed to put out products that are going to still serve their communities, that are still able to help and give back, and are still able to deliver to the purpose that they're trying to achieve. And if you're doing that, and you're doing it on a consistent basis, and you're saying, I'm happy to get out of my comfort zone, I'm happy to get out of my box, I'm stretching and growing myself. So you're learning new things constantly. You're looking at how other entrepreneurs are doing it, and you're saying, what are they doing that's working that I can take and implement and apply in my own business? You've got to constantly be agile. And in that first year of business, the one thing that I was constantly agile. The other aspect when it comes to growing yourself is growing your network. It's growing the database of people that you're engaging with. And this is critically important. Every single lead, every single client, every piece of business that has come to me in the last 5 years, 6 years of business, and I'm going to exclude 2020 because 2020 has run completely differently. I mean, we broke all the rules in 2020, but up until last year, every piece of business and revenue earned came through someone in my network. So it came through a relationship that I had held. Your networks and your relationships are critically important. If you're going out into business, or you already are, and you're not investing in growing your network, in nurturing your network, in developing those relationships, then you're shortchanging yourself and your business to levels that you probably would never know or be able to measure. But if you are doing that, then you're creating an opportunity for yourself to grow and to grow your business as well. The other thing that came that you must know when it comes to networks. So those of you that are still in employment, like I was in employment before I stepped out to become an entrepreneur, is the networks that we grow may vanish, because a lot of the networks that we grow, if we're not growing them with a certain context in mind, and if those relationships are not nurtured at a different level, they will vanish when the persons in the network believe that there is no value to be gained any longer. I mean, I had a massive network when I left corporate, and in my ignorance, I thought this is my network. But like I said, I was ignorant on so many fronts when I stepped out as an employee to become an entrepreneur. And I only learned it all a year, 2 years, 3 years, and I'm still learning up until today. I mean, I constantly learn. But when it comes to networks, remember that if you're not growing and nurturing that network with the context outside of the corporate brand that you might currently be in. I hadn't grown my network as part of the corporate brand. So that network wasn't my network by any means. That network was the corporate brand's network. And even though I had known those individuals and engaged with them, once I had left the corporate brand, the network actually vanished. Just a handful of them stayed and continued to be a part of my valued network thereafter. Most of the relationships that I hold today are relationships that I've developed since leaving corporate. And had I understood how to build those networks and relationships while I was in corporate, it would have been a completely different picture. So if you're an employee that is going to be stepping out to start your own business or is thinking about doing it, you need to really, really invest in those relationships, but investing in them as an individual, not as an employee of a certain corporate brand. If you invest in growing the relationships tied to you and your personal brand, the relationships will stay intact. If you invest in developing the relationships under the corporate brand umbrella, which is what most of us do when we're employees, most of those relationships will vanish when you decide to walk away from the corporate. That's another lesson that I had to learn, but definitely one that well served me. And your networks and relationships are critically important. Make sure that you're nurturing them. Another aspect in terms of growing yourself is managing and maintaining a positive mindset. What we put into our minds is critically important. What are you reading on a daily basis? I mean, right now, if you just think of the current context, there's just so much of negative news out there. There's just daily we're bombarded with more and more negative news. And the more negative we put into our minds, the less positive our minds are going to hold on to. And if we get to the point where we shift the balance in our own minds from too much of positive information to too much of negative, then we're going to flip it into the negative. And when our minds are in a negative spiral, one thing you will experience is it becomes nearly impossible to solve problems. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a business, you'll know that on a daily basis, you are faced with problems and challenges. If you hadn't invested in keeping that mind positive, then the solutions to those problems are not going to be forthcoming. You're going to really struggle to solve the problems. If for no other reason you keep yourself in a positive mindset, you should do it, because if you're unable to solve a problem, you're going to close your business down. If you're unable to solve a problem, you're not going to be able to serve your clients. You're not going to be able to grow your business. You won't be able to pay the bills. You won't be able to be agile and get through the challenges that you're facing. So on a daily basis, just make sure you're feeding your mind with positive information and you're limiting the amount of negative that's coming in. And that doesn't just come in through news. It comes in from the people that we join and connect with. What are you talking about when you're on the phone with somebody? What are they texting you? What are they sharing with you? Look at the net, the groups of people that you're spending a lot of time with. If the language and the talk is negative, just know that you're actually piling onto the negative side of the scale. And at some point, it's going to tip. Make the decision for yourself. Do you want to allow that scale to tip? Because once it tip, you actually pay the price for a long time until you're able to balance and get that scales back tipping in the positive. So know that, have a keen sense of awareness around the negative inputs that you're taking in, and make sure that you limit them, and you take in 10 times more positive inputs, because the positive inputs are what keep our brains moving and solving problems and getting us to be able to just keep the charge going. So that's part of growing yourself. So we've talked so far about a bulletproof mindset. We've said you really need to know yourself incredibly well. And then we've spoken about growing yourself. And the last thing I want to share with you today, in terms of the journey and what I've experienced and what I've learned, is that the final thing you need to do, and this is from my first job business, is that you need to be yourself. You can't be anybody else. And if you try and be someone else, everyone's going to spot it from a mile away. You're going to be seen as fake. You're going to be arriving at problems, not knowing how to solve them, not knowing how to get through it. You need to be yourself consistently in everything that you do, consistently in every product that you take to market, every service that you take to market, consistently in how you serve your clients and your customers and your networks and your relationships. So you've got to know who you are, you've got to grow who you are, and then you've got to be that person consistently. And that's the person that you've got to wake up to every single morning, and that's the person that you've got to take out there and allow the world to see. So it's got to come through in your brand messaging. It's got to come through in the services you deliver, the products you deliver. Now, if I go back and you say, what was the problem with that one event that I had hosted? And the topic that we spoke about was work-life balance. At the event where the guy in the first row nodded off halfway through my presentation. So what was the problem in that event? And the problem was that I was not being myself. If I were being myself, I would never have taken up the opportunity to speak on a topic that was not aligned to who I am. I mean, work-life balance is important, but if I had to talk about work-life balance, I'd speak about it from a very different context. I would align it to a level of high performance. I would align it to your goals. I would align it to your values. I would never embrace it from the point of work-life balance, because if you think of work-life balance, it holds quite a negative charge. And for me, if it doesn't hold a positive charge and doesn't resonate with me, then it really doesn't work for me. So I'm going to pause right there. Feroz is saying that there's no sound. If it's a problem for anyone else, please pop that into the chat box and I'll know that I've vanished off the air. Just let me know if you can hear me, and then I'm going to carry on. So we've spoken about bulletproof mindset, we've spoken about knowing yourself, and we've spoken about growing yourself. And right now, we're talking about being yourself in all that you deliver, in all that you, in every way that you bring yourself forward. Karen is saying, you can hear me. Thank you, Karen. So for confirming that. So we're saying being yourself and be consistent. Oh, we're getting lots of I'm good, all clear. Excellent. Thanks, guys. So we're saying being consistent. And if I looked at that work-life balance issue that I had at that event and somebody nodding off, and no one's ever nodded off since then, I learned my lesson. It was because it didn't resonate with me, and it wasn't true to me and what I would be able to deliver out there. So be yourself, be consistent in every single aspect when it comes to your business. And that's going to ensure, that alignment is going to ensure that you're going to see success in various spheres. So being yourself in terms of your brand, in terms of your brand messaging, in terms of all that you do, really just brings it all together. It puts it into this bubble for you, and really just says, well, if there was part of the foundation that I needed to set to ensure that I am positioning my business for success, that I'm positioning myself for success within this business, then really all of these elements are critically important. They were critically important for me, most especially in those first 12 months. And in business, in startups, in small businesses, those first 12 months are the most critical 12 months of your journey. And if you break in those 12 months, and if you give up, and if you detract from the path, then the business is most likely going to fail, and you're not going to be able to bring to fruition the big dreams that you've got inside of you. So you've got to really just get it right. So I'm going to wrap it up and just put it all into one concise little summary for you. And while I'm doing that, if you've got any thoughts popping up in your mind, or any questions that you'd like to share, or comments that you'd like to share, or maybe just examples based on what I've spoken about today, then pop them into the chat box, and we'll pick them up as soon as I wrap up this conversation and put it into a little summary for you. So what did we speak about today? We said, I'm going to tell you about my journey going from employee to entrepreneur, and some of the challenges that I've experienced in the startup phase of my business, and what are some of the strategies that I utilized to overcome them. And now you'll see that actually that first year was pretty tough. I mean, that first year was so difficult. But I came through it all, and I smiled at the end of the year, because everything that I learned through that first year has enabled me to create a strong foundation for myself and for my business, and be able to just grow it in leaps and bounds thereafter. I mean, every single year has seen growth in the business after that first year. And I mean, yes, if we look at the earnings in the first year, it wasn't difficult to see massive growth in the years thereafter. But the fact is, the business has grown significantly since year one. And for that, I am incredibly proud and incredibly grateful for the experiences and challenges that I experienced in year one. And the strategies that I've talked to you about today is, number one, over and above everything. I mean, you wrap everything up in this. It's your bulletproof mindset. Nothing matters more than your mindset. So you make sure you've invested in that heaps and heaps and heaps. So your bulletproof mindset is number one. The next is knowing yourself, your strengths, your abilities, what it is you value, and then aligning everything you do to the real version of you. So know yourself incredibly well, know what makes you feel stuck, and know what moves you forward, and utilize that knowledge to get unstuck and to keep going forward. Next, you need to invest on a daily basis in growing yourself, growing your networks, growing your knowledge and skills to deliver what you want to deliver within your business. And you need to be investing in growing your positive mindset, making sure that you're never allowing the scales to tip from positive to negative, because when we tip from positive to negative is when it's going to hurt us and serve us no longer. And the last foundational pillar is being yourself, making sure that the true you is evident and clear in absolutely everything that you're doing, that you're consistently representing yourself in your brand, through your products, through your service, through how you serve, and that you're aligned in every facet to the real you. And that's when you come across as authentic and true, and people connect with you and they want to do business with you in the future. So if you're in business and you're wanting to grow your business, I think these foundational pillars are what I invested in, and what ensured that I could get through year one and then just keep growing thereafter. And maybe one or two snippets out of this is going to help you in your thinking, in your planning, and maybe overcoming a challenge that you might be experiencing where you currently are at as well. And on that note, I just want to say, well, that's it from me today. I'm just hoping that sharing this with you has been of some use. I mean, if you've got some value out of what we've discussed here today, then pop a note into the chat box and let's have a look and see what comments or thoughts you might have. If you've got value out of it, what aspect, what one takeaway did you pick up on that might serve you in terms of where you're at in your journey? So just maybe list the one takeaway that you're taking away today that might help you, and then I'll know that maybe this time that I've invested here today is actually worth it, that it has served in some way to help you as well. Onwal says, absolutely, one has to be very careful what you feed your mind these days. Absolutely, Onwal, couldn't agree with you more. Dita says, I can confirm that starting your freedom is the biggest challenge that you will know, but I've learned more in the last 4 months than ever. The point you're driving now is exactly what I'm experiencing. Thank you. Thanks very much, Dita. Oh, I've got asked whether I've spoken at any Psycha events in the last 2 years. Yes, I've spoken at Psycha events. I write for the Psycha magazine, the accountancy essay magazine as well. And I've run a couple of in-house programs through Psycha. And really, the programs that I run now are consistent with who I am. Every single program that I run is based on really developing that bulletproof mindset, on utilizing your mind to get you to do what you need to do and get you to overcome the challenges and the hurdles and to get you to move forward. And if I look at the foundational pillars that I picked up in my year one, and I look at how I serve my clients now, all of these foundational pillars are built into how I serve. I mean, everything I do is based on helping others to grow themselves, helping others to entrench a positive mindset, helping others to develop that bulletproof mindset. I work in helping you to know yourself and making sure that you're utilizing that to serve in the world and then to be yourself. I mean, that is the foundation of what I train, and it's certainly the foundation of one of my flagship programs as well, which includes all of these foundational pillars. So it's running through all aspects of my life. Rafense is saying, do you think strategy is key in building a business, or do you develop your business strategy as you go along? Rafense, I think that could go either way. For me, I had a strategy to start with. It was completely the wrong strategy, but it was certainly a strategy to start with. I am someone who really buys strongly into planning. I think if you don't have a plan in place, then you're going to be running in all different directions and you're going to go with the flow, and that flow might not be aligned to what it is you're wanting to achieve. So for me, strategy is always key. And maybe that strategy evolves as you go along, as you learn, as you get your toes dipped into the water, like it has for me. But my point of view is that strategy is imperative, and strategy is really just having a really great plan that you can fall back to. It's a strategy in your business is like goal setting in your personal life. It's just, I think it's important to have it in place. Tom says, amazing. Thanks, Usha. Very informative. Can identify. Thank you, Tom. Chantal says, wonderful. Thank you so much. Diane says, thanks for the insights. Sean, thank you, Usha. That was superb. Thank you, Sean. Tilly, thank you, Usha, for sharing. Absolute pleasure. Tilly, Dita, very inspiring as always, Usha. Thanks a million. Thank you, Dita. Appreciate that. Rafensa, thanks. This is great. Absolute pleasure. Dayalan, much appreciated. Very insightful. Chantal says, definitely bulletproof mindset. Absolutely, Chantal. How do you say this tune? William, thank you so much, Usha. Thank you. I'm sorry I said your name wrong. Feroz, thanks, Usha. Pule, much appreciated. Karen, how important it is to lead by example. Absolutely, Karen. Dayalan, well, I did not fall asleep. Thank you. I mean, that's so important for me. After that first session, no one's ever fallen asleep again. And the problem now is you're not in the room with me. I mean, you could certainly log in and then doze off behind the camera, but I wouldn't know it. But thank you for telling me you didn't fall off to sleep. That is actually super, super important. Monique says, thank you so much for sharing. Takeaway, invest in yourself. Monique, that is the only investment we should be making in our lives. It's the first investment is investing in ourselves. Tilly says, build your personal networks. Imperative, build your personal networks. Rafensa says, mine is the building and aligning your business with your strengths. Absolutely. When we don't align to our strengths, and we don't know our strengths, then we don't align to our strengths, then we wonder why it is we can't cope in this area, why it is we're struggling in this area. It's because we're trying to play in our areas of weakness. So it's important to understand the strengths and then align yourself to those strengths. Tom says, back off from perfection, concentrate on quality. Absolutely, Tom. That is absolutely imperative. Sean says, invest in yourself is my biggest takeaway. Without a doubt, invest, invest, invest. Feroz says, would we get a link to the recording? Feroz, you most certainly will get a link to the recording. And I hope it's not that you nodded off halfway and you've got to catch up now, Feroz. But you definitely are going to get a link to the recording so you can re-listen to it at a later stage. Sandra says, thank you for sharing, Usha. Truly an inspiring talk. Thank you, Sandra. Javase Mwange says, thanks a lot for sharing, Usha. So many ideas, but not zoning on one has been a major challenge for me. Exactly. So you've obviously got those creative juices flowing as well. Pick an idea and run with it. Critically important. And then when you see that the idea is not bearing the fruit that you wanted to, then look at whether you need to shift gears and move to a different idea. But it's really important to pick one and then really drill into it. Martin says, thanks for sharing. Much appreciated. Thank you, Dr. Martin Smith. We've got Fariel saying, so many of your challenges sound like what I've been through after I was retrenched. My business was registered just under a year ago, and I am in the phase of empowering and learning and growing at the moment. Fariel, I just want to wish you all of the best. I mean, you've got to just stay the course, get stuck in there, find what's going to work for you. And if I had to say, okay, well, what could I have also done in that first year? It might have been to pick something small that I could have converted into a revenue earning product or service, and then just pushed that product through so that I started to generate revenue on the side. When you're in business and you're not generating revenue, you're actually starting to hurt your own mindset in terms of how you can make this business survive and thrive. So pick something, pick a small product or a small service and just get started. Get stuck in there and start to deliver it just to make sure that you're able to see some revenue flowing through the business as well. Jerusha says, thanks, Usha. Takeaway, high standards are okay, even if it's not perfect. Absolutely, Jerusha. Courtney, thank you for your insights. I think for me, the most important thing is that bulletproof mindset. Not everyone will be in favor of what you want to do and will try and convince you to not go ahead with your goals and plans. But only you know what you want and where you want to go. Surrounding yourself with like minds and constantly developing. That's what I am taking away from this. Courtney, that is beautiful. If you take nothing else away from it and you do just that one thing, I guarantee you're going to see remarkable shifts. And anyone that's creating a noise around you that is contrary to what it is you're trying to achieve, block out the noise. I mean, just press the stop button. You don't need that in your life, because those are the things that get into our minds. They fester, they grow, and they tip the scales to the negative. So just press the pause button on them. And just make sure that you persevere in terms of what it is you're wanting to achieve. Ariel says, I love the bulletproof mindset concept. Excellent, thank you. Russell says, perfection paralysis. I catch myself doing far more than I should. Absolutely, Russell. Russell and Mariska say thank you. Michelle, thanks for sharing your journey and advice. Usha, and congratulations on your success. Michelle, thank you so much. Reshmi, thanks, Usha. This was great. In pandemic environment, how do you go about building new networks? Reshmi, there are so many opportunities to build your networks. In fact, I have found that there are more opportunities now than there were before lockdown happened. And if I looked at the amount of time I've spent in an almost online networking environments compared to the amount of time I could have invested driving into a networking event and then spending those extra hours sitting and having breakfast and all of the other stuff that go with it, it actually becomes too much. So Reshmi, it would be going out and looking for networks that are aligned to what it is you're trying to do. Do you want a network where you're going to join like-minded people who can help you to grow? Then go and join those communities. Are you looking for networks where you can find customers? Then go and join those communities. Attend events and then participate. Actively participate, actively engage, actively connect with others. Use social media if you need to, but know who it is you want to connect with, why you're connecting with them, and then take strides to connect with them and then to serve. Everything we do, if we base it on a service mindset, you're going to find you're going to yield great results from it. So find the community you want to network with, take action, and then find ways to serve that community. Maria says, thank you. It was a great presentation. I am a civil engineer and employee at a time, but I think about starting my own business in construction since I have board experience. But then again, I have a passion in cooking, so I can't decide which one to follow. So if you could just give me some insights always. So Maria, really, when it comes to business, I mean, those are two very different industries. And if I was sitting in your shoes, I mean, I don't know all of the context around it, but I would look at it and say, which of these spaces is going to make me happiest to serve in on a daily basis? Which of these spaces can I create the greatest impact? And when we talk about impact, the impact is to other businesses, to other individuals, to communities, to the economy, in terms of how can we create impact for our families, in terms of how can we create financial impact for ourselves, how can we build wealth, what are my highest values, which of these is most aligned to my values. Really going to all of the foundational principles and matching it to yourselves. What are your strengths? Which of these areas are you going to be able to deliver products that are going to sell and create revenue for you? So Maria, really two different pathways. And as a civil engineer, I mean, I'm a chartered accountant, but even though I'm in a space that might not be living and practicing and breathing chartered accountancy on a daily basis, it certainly is still the foundation with which I serve a lot of my clients. And I'm also a non-executive director, so I'm utilizing the core skills that I experienced on my journey as well. So I think for you, it would be really looking at it from that perspective. Now, Lefefe, my takeaway, investing in yourself and a bulletproof mindset. Absolutely. Derek, thanks for the talk and like the platform too. Abdul, thanks. Positivity is key through all low points. Absolutely, Abdul. When it's the hardest is when it's most important. Sandra, the biggest takeaway from this morning is building a bulletproof mindset, especially when one is a woman in business. You have definitely inspired me in forward motion, especially in this period of COVID-19. Sandra, that makes me so happy. Please, great strides forward. Bulletproof mindset, definitely at the heart of it all. Graham, perfection is the enemy of good. Absolutely, Graham. Perfection is the enemy of good. Just get it done. And done is better than perfect is what I've taught my daughter and some of my students. And it's something that really helps me to get unstuck as well. Wilkes, bulletproof mindset, currently employed with my own business on the side, which will eventually lead into my own business. So the mindset is so important. Absolutely, Wilkes, and all the best on your business. Sandra, thank you. Usha, your authentic positive energy is truly contagious. Oh, thank you, Sandra. I'm very happy to be spreading some positivity and in a time where all of us need it, really. Christelle, thank you, Usha. Your insights remind me once again how brave I was to start my own business. Know who you are and what you want. Network and surround yourself with like-minded people. Absolutely. And well done, Christelle. It is. You've got to be fearless and so brave to be in business. So well done for pointing that out. And I've got just the utmost respect for anyone that's out there just killing it in business, because it's difficult. It's so challenging, but it's so rewarding at the end of the day as well. So thanks for saying that. Tilly says, Maria, also take into account what the world needs out there. Thank you, Tilly. That's brilliant. Definitely look at what the world needs out there and how can you serve and deliver to the world what they need. Abdul, the fear of losing everything can be limiting or can be used as a driver, but it depends on the mindset. It all comes down to mindset. Whether we're going to move, whether we're going to be stuck and paralyzed, everything comes down to mindset. Invest in that mindset. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me here this morning. I know you took time out of your busy days to spend the morning with me, and I hope that, well, I can see that's added value to many of you, and I'm pleased for that. It really does make me happy. For those of you that are looking for a little bit more of a deep dive, a little bit more of a how-to in terms of some of the pillars that we've discussed this morning, I'll pop an email out to let you know about a coffee conversation that I'm going to set up for next week. And if you're keen to join the coffee conversation, that's where we're going to really utilize some coaching principles to get the problems that you might be experiencing, put them on the table, resolve them in a group setting environment. Then please feel free to join me and you can be on that journey with me as well. And it's been phenomenal having you in the room this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. And I appreciate all of you. And I wish you just tons and tons and tons of success today, tomorrow, and every day that follows. Please take care and stay safe.